So, in the evenings we're going to visit 3 or 4 beaches, one of which is for a party, and the other are to think about a few different things. But before we move on to that, I thought we'd just introduce a few people here from other places. I don't know if you noticed in the catering team, but the 4 of them were born in 4 different continents. So just short of an African and a North American, we have a whole set. So if you'd like to stand up, if you were born in New Zealand. Well done. Woo. Just have a look around. There you are. Sit down. If you were not born in New Zealand. Woo. Very good. You can sit down.
I think we can do it.
If you currently live or work or study in Australia.
I think we could take them too.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. They're tougher than they look. Great to have you here with us, Dave and Kathy Walter. If you live, study or work in Vanuatu. There are some things here where I was sitting earlier on that I think are probably for that won't keep you warm, but it'll sort of psychologically make you feel better. A nice big blanket here. Just kind of covering yourselves in. Just a warning to the Lincoln people about the fire, don't throw petrol into it. I know you boys do out on the farm, that's not going to improve the atmosphere for the Vanuatians. We have a couple, Vlad and Anna and their son Ivan, who you might have seen, who are from Ukraine. And he's currently studying in Australia, maybe having a little nap. Quite understandable. So they can't stand up because they're not here. Who is in New Zealand as an international student? That was it. Who does not have English as their first language? Okay, if you find you cannot understand anything I am saying, then don't think that's just because English is not your first language. Many native English speakers have the same experience. And if you require simultaneous translation, someone like Bain will probably be best placed to interpret because he lived in Scotland for a while. Lillian was saying earlier on, apparently, that I'm the only Scottish person that she knows. Probably Sean Connery. He speaks very highly of you, Lillian. Okay, if you're a TSCF staff worker. Okay, so I'm in the middle of quite a busy time. So I'm here from Monday to Friday. On Saturday, my youngest son leaves to go to China for 2 weeks with the school choir. And the German international student we've had staying with us for the past year goes back to Germany for good. On Sunday, I take my under-18 hockey team that I coach to Auckland for the national tournament until the following Saturday. I get back on the Saturday night. On the Sunday, my wife and I leave to go to America for a week's holiday with some friends from Scotland and our oldest son. And then we go to Mexico to the IP's World Assembly on the Wednesday, where we are for 10 days. Then I go to Scotland for 8 days, and I come back on the 11th of August. So my brain is trying to plot about 4 different things at the same time. My car went quite peculiar on Friday, so it had to go to an emergency garage repair on Saturday. It had to be dropped off at the garage today on the way, and I'm trying to get a few things organised in the office before I go. This was all suitably bonkers until I developed a chest infection on Friday, so you might hear me coughing quite loudly. And if I kind of collapse on the front, either with exhaustion or with coughing, my only plea is that if I require mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, it is delivered by somebody who does not have a beard. See, there are some advantages to growing a beard after all. So, the first beach that I want to take us to this evening is Kapiti Beach on the Kapiti coast. Who's been to the beach at Raumati or at Waikanae Beach, Paraparaumu, all kind of joins up. Who's been there? I first went to that beach the first time I came to New Zealand in 2001. Yeah, Tim Hodge knows that because he happened. Tim Hodge doesn't know that. A different time. 2001, and I came to speak at a TSCF event like this. And we thought it was a one-off experience coming to this side of the world. And we went as a family down to the beach at Waikanae and looked at Kapiti Island sitting out there, and went to a couple of conferences, which were at El Rancho and Palm Grove, and then went to Australia and saw some koala bears and some Australians. Then went back to Scotland and thought that's that. Really, but the board of TSCF said, look, would you think about coming to work in New Zealand? And I had to think about that on Waikanae Beach, and I decided, no, thanks very much. I don't really fancy that very much. I'll go back to Scotland. And in 2004, the board of TSCF got back in touch again and said, we still haven't got anything sorted out. Would you think about coming now, because we've heard you're thinking about leaving what you're currently doing. So I came back to Waikanae Beach and was interviewed at Raumati Beach, and spent some time on that beach thinking about whether this was the time to come to New Zealand. And the psalm that I remember reading on the beach then, the Psalm 137, which is written not by a beach, but by the water. And if you want to turn to Psalm 137, it's basically a psalm written by the exiles in Babylon. And the question that they have is, how can we do God's thing in this foreign place? How can we be the people of God when we have been taken away from all that gives us security and purpose and direction? When we have been promised the land, when we have built the temple, when God has protected us, and now all that we thought was part of our safety and security has been stripped away from us. What does that mean for us? Somebody like to read the first few verses of Psalm 137.
By the rivers of Babylon we sat and wept when we remembered Zion. There on the poplars we hung our harps. There our captors asked us for songs. Our tormentors demanded songs of joy. They said, "Sing us one of the songs of Zion." How can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth if I do not remember you, if I do not consider Jerusalem my highest joy.
So by the rivers of Babylon we sat and wept. A recognition of being away, a recognition of being alienated, of being cut off, of not being surrounded by that which was familiar to them, and being goaded by the people around you. Was anybody at the Rugby World Cup semi-final against Australia 4 years ago? Okay. Best moment of that was when the crowd started singing 4 more years back to the Australians, because George Gregan had taunted the All Blacks at a previous World Cup, 4 more years, boys, you're not going to win the World Cup. And I think anybody who wasn't supporting Australia at Eden Park that night for about 10 minutes was shouting 4 more years. And the Australians, sorry to bring this up, they probably healing memories for you, but they quite a tough thing. It's the kind of when you turn to people and say, "You're not singing anymore," that will sometimes come up as a chant when your team is doing better than the other team. So they're kind of being made fun of, and they themselves have got this kind of experience of confusion and of disconnect. How can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a foreign land? How can we keep going? It's quite coincidental that we sang tonight that song about every blessing I turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, still I will say. Because that has probably been the song that has meant the most to me over the 10 years that we've been in New Zealand. Because that experience of call, that sense of God calling us to come here and to invest in the life and ministry of TSCF and with student and graduate ministry here, does not mean that everything has been easy by any stretch of the imagination over those 10 years. I apologise to those of you who were born here, but I have had weeks, days and months when I have thought, I don't like it here. I would rather not be here. Nice as Kapiti Beach is, much as I love Wellington, passionate as I am about New Zealand, as a citizen of this country, with some of my kids who spent more than half their lives here, there are still times where I think, God, what are you doing? Why am I here? What's going on? When I miss funerals of friends and family members, when I miss weddings, when I miss family events and occasions, when I miss my church in Edinburgh, where there's people do not understand when I try to talk about poetry or any number of other words that people think I say funny down here. My wife's name is Ailsa, and it has 2 A's in it. Now, A is the first letter in the alphabet, okay? So my wife's name starts and finishes with the first letter of the alphabet. But for reasons that I do not understand, Whenever I say A in New Zealand, people think I'm saying E. So when I spell my wife's name, people get a bit confused. So we went out for her birthday once and I'd spelt it, and we walked in, and in the restaurant there was a balloon with her name written on it, which was A-L-I-F-E. Her name is Ailsa, so I don't know what Aletha was about, but that seemed to be for us. I was on the phone last year, and the person said, "Can you spell that?" It was like it was some business that we were dealing with. And I said, "Yeah, it's A-I," and they said E-I, and I said, "No, A-I," and they said, "Yeah, E-I," and I said, "No, A for apple." And there was this kind of pause, and I said, "Apple doesn't start with an E." I said, "Yes, I realise. I realise that." I'm not sure when Jeremiah wrote his letter to the exiles, encouraging them how to live in Babylon. Whether it came before or after this psalm was written is quite difficult to establish. But if you want to turn to Jeremiah 29, this was one of the passages that we looked at last year, if you were at the very first summit that happened. Because there are prophets who are basically telling the people in exile that God's in charge, they're going to be back very, very soon. So Jeremiah 29 from verse 4. "This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and settle down, plant gardens and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, do not decrease. Also seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Yes, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Do not let the prophets and diviners among you deceive you. Do not listen to the dreams you encourage them to have. They are prophesying lies to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares the Lord. This is what the Lord says. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. And you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back from captivity. I will gather you from all the nations and places where I have banished you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back from the place from which I carried you into exile. So this is a passage that I think is very significant because it helps the people of God understand how to live in an alien environment, how to live in a hostile place. And it's a theme that is picked up by the New Testament in terms of encouraging the people of God to live as aliens in the environment that they find themselves in. And really, it's a passage that recognizes three things. It recognizes the sovereignty of God, that what is happening in human history is not an accident. It is God who has carried them into captivity. It is God who has carried them into exile. It is God who will bring them back from exile. God is in charge. It's not the Babylonians. And when we look at what's happening around the world with ISIS, with attacks on Christians in different countries, with what's happening in Greece with the economy, what's happening with racism in the south of the US, it's tempting to kind of hold our hands up in horror and think, what is going on? But ultimately, God is still in charge of what is happening in the world. God is the God of human history. It is his story, and he will bring to completion that which he has started in terms of the redemption of humanity and the new heaven and the new earth. And it's a very striking reminder in that letter that God is in charge. No matter how you feel hanging your harp on a tree beside the river, with that despair coping with the gloating, God has not given up on you. God has not given up on his people. God has not stopped keeping his promises. God is sovereign. So for me, on that beach at Waikanae, recognising the sovereignty of God in terms of his call on my life to go where he chooses, I need to bear that in mind when I'm having the I hate New Zealand days. One of the things I felt God was calling me to do when I came to New Zealand was to get involved in sport. And we're going to hear a little bit more about sport later on tonight. There are days when I do not enjoy coaching. When I have parents who want to know why their son is not getting more game time, or why he's not been picked in this team, or when the referee is blind and deaf and biased, or when things don't quite go how you hope they will, or when it's pouring rain and freezing cold, and you think, sorry, why am I doing this exactly? And it's because of the call of God. It's because of the sovereignty of God. It's the same thing that keeps you going through that kind of situation. You know, I can guarantee Zach is looking to go to Siena in Italy, and we'll hear from him later on in the week. I can guarantee, Zach, that you will have some fabulous times in Italy, and you will have some rotten times in Italy. But the key thing is that God is in charge of the good times and the tough times. And you can learn stuff about him from both those extremes. If you're thinking about doing Minty, don't think it's going to be the happiest thing that's ever happened to you. It's not a year out, it's a year in. And it's a year in when you'll learn stuff about God that you won't learn any other way. Sure, Kate, when you were in Africa last year, wasn't always utterly fabulous. Lots of fantastic things, but times of homesickness and confusion and anxiety. And you know, God walks with you through those things. If you just come from Vanuatu, you might be just sitting there already with your body temperature plummeting, thinking, why did I agree to come here? And you know, we can't make it warm for you, but hopefully we can stand with you in your coldness. I was at a missions conference in North America a few years ago, and there was buses, but I chose to walk quite a lot because I prefer kind of walking about. I was walking back to the hotel we were staying in, and there was these two figures ahead of me that were hardly moving. And I caught up with them, and they were two African brothers, and they were absolutely turning blue because it was snowing. And they said, "Oh, brother, we cannot go on. Please just pray for us and leave us." And I said, "Well, it's not quite that bad. I think you could probably get yourself to say, no, brother, no, you do not understand how cold we are. We are convinced we are going to die here." And I said, "Well, I'll go and get help, and I'll come back in a vehicle of some kind." He said, "Okay, thank you. We will just lie down and sleep here." I said, "No, that's not a good plan. Lying down in the snow isn't going to help. But we are so tired as well as so cold." I said, "Yeah, but it's better if you stay standing up." So I kind of dragged them across to a lamppost and sort of put them on either side of the lamppost with their hands round each other in this kind of African lamppost embrace kind of thing that I'd invented. And then went kind of jogging off through the snow and came back, and they were kind of still there when we came back. I think they were probably getting a few people hooting horns at them when they went past in the car. And we took them back to the hotel next session. Brother, you have saved our lives. We are so thankful. So, no, I don't think you're going to die of hypothermia on the main street in St. Louis, but you never know how these things might work out. We can be in situations which are alien to us, which are uncomfortable, which are difficult. But God is in charge of everything that happens. The second thing it's about is about engagement. It's about getting involved where they are. So it's saying build houses, settle down, plant gardens, eat, marry, have children, have grandchildren. Increase in number. Now, there's a lot of places around the Western world where this is a big theme for churches. Get engaged in your community. Get involved. And it's absolutely right to engage and get involved, but it's not to do so at the expense of remembering what your identity is. So they are to get involved in Babylonian society, but they are not to become Babylonian. They are to be different, because they have a hope that in 70 years' time, God is going to come to their rescue and take them back to Jerusalem. So it's about an identity which is rooted in a bigger identity as them being the people of God, and that being boundaried by a hope, the hope of the future, of what God has said He will do. So there's no point in us getting involved in our universities or in our communities if getting involved means that we dilute the essential essence of what it means to be the people of God. We're to get involved in such a way as what it means to be the people of God is something that is transmitted to the people that we're engaging with. So that as we increase in number there, the number of those who become heirs to that promise, the number of those in exile who share in that hope, increase. So there are more who come to share in that hope. And what will happen in captivity is that the people's hearts will be turned to God. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. So we have in this beach of calling, in this river of of question, the reality of the sovereignty of God, the reality of the call of God and the promise of God. That it's to do with an identity that is not to be diluted, but is to be transmitted and shared, and there is to be a growth in the people, so that God's promises will be followed through. And part of what will happen is that the people's commitment to God will grow through this set of experiences. I mentioned at the start, in a couple of weeks' time, the IFES World Assembly is happening in Mexico. It happens every 4 years, and it gets moved around different continents each time. And we'll be talking about that later in the week as well. But we have Ben Johnson with us tonight. And Ben is going to be there. Ben is a third-year music student at Auckland. And he's just come for this evening. One of the things that I've been keen to do is to promote student involvement at the highest levels in IFES. So at the first World Assembly that I went to when I was here in Canada, the kind of official rule was that you were allowed 3 people from your country, a sort of board member, a staff worker, and a student. And I was quite keen to take more than 1 student, and I was quite keen to take more than 1 staff member. And I knew a few people from being involved in IFEs in Europe and in the UK. So I kind of said, look, I'd really like to take a couple of students. And I said, oh yeah. So, when I say a couple, I really mean 3, or 4 maybe. So just with a little bit of kind of wheeling and dealing over the next kind of few months, I managed to nudge it up to 9. So we took 9 people, including 4 students, to the World Assembly. So New Zealand had the most students of any country at the World Assembly in Canada. And because we took good students, people noticed them. And because we wore matching clothes, people noticed us. And because I knew the people who were emceeing it and they left New Zealand off the big map on the stage, they definitely noticed us. And people started saying, how come New Zealand can get 4 students to come if big countries nearby can't, sort of thing. Maybe we should be doing more to encourage students to come. So at the next World Assembly in Poland, they put on an event for 150 students beforehand who stayed for the main World Assembly, and the same thing is happening in Mexico. So we have 4 students going to Mexico, at least 3 of whom are here, who I'll introduce you to later in the week. At this World Assembly, they had the idea for the first time of getting a couple of students to be part of the Bible teaching program. So each of the Bible talks, there are 2 expositors, a man, a woman, different continents, different kind of countries, different backgrounds, but 2 students involved in that. When we were in Australia, at the national training event last year, we had a kind of gathering which Daniel Bourdonnais was at, and he shared a bit about the vision for perhaps in the future having students kind of teaching at things. And most people who were there just kind of sat and nodded, but I think it was Ben said, this is a challenge that we want to take seriously, because we take challenges seriously in New Zealand. And Andy, I think, kind of whispered in Ben's ear, you'd be good at this kind of thing, Ben. And nothing really kind of came of that. But then a couple of months later, I got an email saying, is there a student from the South Pacific you'd like to recommend to be part of the Bible teaching program in Mexico? So I wrote back saying, too right there is. His name's Ben Johnson. And Ben has been accepted onto that. He's been to the speakers retreat in Seattle earlier on this year, and he's got a talk prepared on Daniel chapter 1, which kind of follows on from some of these themes that I've just been sketching out tonight. Andy has been meeting with Ben from way before this kind of came on the horizon, and Ben's done a great job at discipling Andy. And it's not finished yet, but it's a work in progress. So, and it was really Andy's suggestion that it would be a great opportunity for Ben to be able to give the talk that he's going to give in Mexico to us, so that we could kind of appreciate that, and it would encourage him in terms of his preparation for going to Mexico. So we're delighted to have you with us, Ben, and I'll hand over to you.